Hello and welcome to another Foran video. This will be a bit different, if anything, because this time it's less of a guide and more of a commentary of my experience. I am speaking of my first serious foray into Final Fantasy XIV. Long story short, after years of playing mainly WoW and on and off The Elder Scrolls Online, link below for a review of the last expansion, I was convinced to give 14 a spin. I played it very leisurely between everything for a few months, but I never really got into it until recently, thanks to a lot of more free time. So, here we go. Now, I have yet to get to endgame, but having played through the whole of a Realm Reborn, aka the base game, and through Heavensward, the first expansion, I think I can at least give some level of informed opinion on the game. One big preamble. A lot of the questing of the base game and the buffer between that and the first expansion is going to be changed quite a bit in the next patch, so any reconsideration on that side will be kept for the video making the comparison. Despite being a fan of all PlayStation and PlayStation 2 era Final Fantasies, I skipped 11 and 13, and on the latter I am told I didn't miss much. I was way too busy with WoW and ESO to get involved with another MMO of the size of Final Fantasy, but having completed most of the content I cared for in those two games, I finally tried. My first reaction, you're not getting a reaction video, was, I'd say, very cold. The plot starts very slow burning, although with a lot of signature elements of both the Final Fantasy franchise and in general MMORPG narrative visible from a mile. And that's the really first thing to take about the game. It's almost all about story. Basically everything you need to unlock is unlocked via quests and story progression, and that's what, together with a graphical and design style that to this day feels off for some reason to me, threw me off at the start. Both ESO and WoW, while certainly have a plot, to unlock things at certain level thresholds, unrelated to how far you've gone with the story. This, for Final Fantasy XIV, is not true with the exception of class or job quests. So, for example, while in WoW you get access to mounts at level 20 and then again at level 40 and so on, in 14 you need to have done the main story to a certain point, and the upgrades in speed are zone related. Another thing that confused me plenty is that level indeed is not character bound but class bound. Final Fantasy XIV in fact allows you to play every class or job you wish on your character, which is interesting if weird for me as a concept, and definitely different, but not less good or more bad than how ESO and WoW handle it. Thanks to this base structure of massive replayability on a character, the game allows itself to be a lot more story driven, which comes with a lot of plus and cons. First of all, the story feels a lot more cohesive and actually meaningful to your progress. At the same time, given everything's locked behind it, you can't skip it, short of buying items from the store for it, and thus endgame will require you to go through all the content of the game. Final Fantasy XIV's story, mind you, has also the same issue of WoW and ESO's story of it being very single player driven, so that kind of detachment from how you play some pivotal moments of it, such as dungeons, raids or trials with a group, and how it actually plays out in the story, in the lore, is still very much present. Travel works, for the most part, like in ESO, with a teleport in most relevant locations aside your own base for the full base game, called seasons. But let us come to the combat itself. It's not bad, but now that I am in Heavensward, it's really getting into shape a bit more. It's a weird mix between WoW's button and position based combat, with a longer global cooldown and intermingling abilities that are instead removed from the global cooldown, and Yasuo's weaving. Boss abilities are of course working in this kind of context. The issue I found is some level of unreadability of both the boss fights and, to be honest, my own character. Everything is just so flashy. Way too flashy, at least at first experience. I can play WoW and Yasuo without on-screen names and numbers, but in Final Fantasy I tried and it's just not doable, even considering in WoW I play most of the content without TBM or similar add-ons. Mind, I play a Dragoon, so melee DPS, and I am still starting, so it might change with time, but it doesn't look very likely. Boss abilities are just very hard to grasp at a glance, and there is no, at least up to Heavensward, warning to explain how they work or, to my knowledge, some sort of dungeon journal. The fact that I am not entirely sure about it is due to the last thing in this short first impressions video. While the UI is almost entirely customizable via in-game systems, way more than WoW and Yasuo, it all feels a lot clunkier, and there is a lot of stuff that you unlock bit by bit, but it is really, at least for me, hard to memorize, when not entirely counterintuitive, as for example your mount ability is stuck not in the same menu of mounts, but on the pets menu. The transmog system as well feels more complicated than it needs to be. As I go on, I haven't really looked into the crafting system much, although it does look a lot better and more complex than both WoW and Yasuo's. This is it for now. As always, if you enjoyed this and the rest of my content, like and subscribe. Now I shall proceed to reach Stormblood as well, and see you again in a couple of weeks for the full run impressions. Enjoy your gaming and see you there.